We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the professional show this Sunday night with Stu and Mitch. Hi lads.
Hi Steve, how are you?
All good to see you. And I just want to send best wishes to Tom Lockyer and Luton Town after yesterday's horrendous situation which developed, seeing him collapse on the pitch again, game abandoned, second time it's happened to that poor lad. And just want to wish him all the best from NUFC Matters and everybody on the show. Let's hope he has a swift recovery. Newcastle 3, Fulham 0, Mitch. Great result for Newcastle. And crisis, what crisis?
Nice result at a nice time, a more than decent performance as well. Bearing in mind, I know they want to make a big deal out of the red card, changing the game, but it didn't really. It just gave us even more control. We were already well in control of the game before they had a man sent off. The only thing that seemed to do was make the statistics even further in our favour. And while they're complaining about it, God, I mean, if that was a red card in rugby, I don't think you'd complain about it. So, I mean, you've got to ask some questions of what was the player thinking the minute he's left the ground? He's totally out of control. And when you're out of control at that kind of height, it's only going to end in one way, really. And yet another manager whinging and complaining. But let's do the complaining and we make the statement on the pitch.
Yeah, great performance and great to see Lewis Miley score. The youngest Newcastle United player to score in the Premier League, and good performance again from him. Superb
performance. Yeah, I thought he made the most of his opportunity when he came on. Took his goal well. See, this is the time for me that the club should have somebody like Tony Loma on standby. Somebody else who scored at the Gallagher end at 17-year-old, who can turn around and have a word with somebody like Lewis Miley about what certain pressures and expectations it could bring and how you handle it and how you manage it. I'm sure the club will look after him in a far better way than Tony was looked after, that's for sure. Because it wasn't long as a number 9 that people were writing stories about Tony being the next Jackie Milburn. And that really did bring a heck of a lot of interest and pressure. But for Lewis, I think he's got the world at his feet at the minute. I love how the rest of the squad are delighted for him. Bruno in particular seems very keen, not just to support him, but to push him forward and say, hey, look at this kid. And that kind of support from your teammates at a moment like this is probably invaluable. And they can lend some of their experience to him as well. But yesterday, again, proved that he's a class act.
Yeah, 3-0. Wasn't the 3-1, Stu, but close but no cigar, mate.
I'm happy for that. I'd take 3-0 over 3-1 every day. But regarding Lewis Miley, it's hard not to get carried away by it. I think his composure, his vision, his all-round ability, his attitude. I think he's the only one that's not getting carried away. Even like if people refer to the interviews there, Bruno, Dan Burn, they're all excited for him, but he seems so level-headed and so unassuming with it. Regarding the game yesterday, I know Mitch says that it's probably reaffirmed the possession we had. We did, but I thought we were a bit ponderous with it, but which is understandable because we had players who were quite clearly carrying knocks and are playing beneath themselves just to make sure, especially in the attacking areas, just to make sure we've got enough on the pitch. But that was as blatant red card as you'll see all season. And I think the second half, I thought Bruno just dictated it, and I thought he was outstanding. He took the game by the scruff of the neck. He started dictating the tempo, and when he's at it, and he's performing like that, it does give the rest of the team a lift. And I would like to mention Kraft as well, because I thought he was exceptional when he came on. He didn't put a foot wrong, and he put a lot of crosses in on the right, which is something that we've been missing of late. So the game finished a very comfortable 3-0. Even with 11 versus 11, I think we would have won anyway. But I think the red card just assured that any of their attacking threat they may have had was going to be very minimal. And it was as comfortable as we can get, I would imagine, especially after what we've been through. And the one thing I did want to mention, Steve, was the Keith Townley comment after the Milan game, when he said that, you know, maybe it was naive of Newcastle not to play out for a draw, but I'm glad that they pushed, because then there's no wondering, there's no what ifs. No, it's a bit like if you're playing deal or no deal, isn't it? You know, you've got a penny or a $250,000 and you're offered 50 grand. To me, you go for the $250,000, and that's what they did. If they'd scored again, they would have been in the Champions League last 16. And had they played for a draw and got the draw once Milan had equalised, I think the press would have been more scathing of them for just shutting up shop. So I don't think it was all or nothing. I think it was the players' will to win and the desire to get into the last 16. And I think if we give ourselves a bit more perspective, half the squad that we've got were facing relegation just not even 2 seasons ago. And the other half have been brought in for nights like Wednesday. So if you give it 2 or 3 more windows, I think we'll crack it. And we'll be exactly where we've all dreamt of and never thought it would happen. And that's how close we are. So I think we really are an upward curve. And going out in the Champions League in that group really wasn't an embarrassment at all. Like I say, we were 1 goal away from getting through. So that was just my take on that, because obviously that was last week and there's been shows since.
Yeah. A clean sheet for Dúbravka, Mitch. How important is that for the lad's confidence?
Yeah, for his and for the defence that sits in front of him as well. I still think he looks a little skittish. He does seem to play the hokey-cokey when he decides if he wants to come for something or not. That might be rustiness. Hopefully he can work out an understanding with whoever's in front of him about how that's going to go. But yeah, I mean, a real much-needed clean sheet for him. And it can only build his confidence up. And it's clear that he's the next off the rank after Pope. I think if there was any doubt about it, I'm quite sure he would have changed that by now, given the goals he's conceded. So he's got the backing of the manager, and we've got to run with it and see what happens in January. But because, you know, there's definitely options that could change that. For now, because he's what we've got till January, much needed clean sheet and much needed boost in confidence.
Yeah, I mean, before the game, Stu, you would have said that, you know, it was a crisis, but that's 7 home wins on the belt. You know, another record that Eddie Howe and his lads have broken. And, you know, it came down to, obviously, there was a decision in the game. They went down to 10 men, but we took a while to break them down, got 3 goals, but the clean sheet was important.
Definitely, not just for Dúbravka, but for the defence as well. Because against Tottenham and Everton, I thought they were overloaded because the midfield got overrun. And ultimately, when you concede goals, it's always the keeper that becomes the focal point. But steal one of Mitch's phrases from a few weeks ago when Pope was getting criticism, he said, "Be careful what you wish for." Now all of a sudden, Pope is Zoff and Shilton rolled into one because he's not playing. He becomes a better player for it. But I've always rated Dúbravka, and I think he got some criticism that was unjust. And yeah, it probably was a bit rustiness and nervousness because when you've sat on the bench for as long as he has, and Pope's quite clearly the number one, you come on with a point to prove, and maybe you can try too hard. But I think, again, a bit of very how man management has told him, look, you're going to be in goal at least until Nick Pope's back. It's your shirt to lose now. And he's shown that in the past with other players when they've come in and replaced what you would say would be starting 11. They've kept the shirt. Dan Burn was the perfect example. He was only meant to cover for Target, wasn't he? Then end up keeping the shirt for nearly 2 seasons. So I think Dúbravka's relaxed into it, and the defence made sure they weren't conceding. And I think that might have been the first half because there was a couple of chances for Fulham, and they could have went. Our defence could have went the other way, but it seemed to grow strength from it and think, right now, sometimes the best form of defence is attack. And I thought they looked really well for the majority of the game. And when you're playing the Premier League, Steve, you're gonna every team's gonna have a chance or two, but sometimes we can get overexcited when it happens against us, you know. So if you look at how many shots we've been conceding of late, like Arsenal, Man United, Fulham, I think you can count on one hand how many shots they've had on target between those 3 teams at home. So I don't think the defence was as much maligned as it is. You've got to also take into consideration when you're looking, we're keeping these clean sheets, but we're also getting the goals, and confidence comes from winning, and they'll keep doing that at home, and we'll just need to get that one away from home now, starting on Tuesday, I hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed the away form improves on Tuesday. Botman's back. It took a while, but they haven't rushed him, Mitch, and good to see him just get a couple of minutes on the pitch towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting hearing people comment about various injuries, and one of the most significant ones I read the other day was somebody saying, well, how the hell can Burn come back from a broken back quicker than somebody with a knee injury? And I think the easiest answer is, if you talk to most top-class athletes, they'd rather have a hard tissue injury than a soft tissue injury, because hard tissue injuries are much more predictable in terms of the healing and where you go. The only player we have with a hard tissue injury that's less predictable is Harvey Barnes, because those Lisfranc or Jones type fractures in and around the metatarsals it's a horrible area to get a break, and it doesn't heal very well. But whatever's been going on with Botman's knee, he didn't look hindered by it at all in the minutes he put in when he came on. So that's a positive. I think they'll be looking to see what the post-op reaction to it is. Burns getting back to fitness. So slowly we're getting there. Unfortunately, however, yesterday we lost Shea and Joe Linton both off. But I think they had 2 different injuries. To me, it looked like Joe Linton's was more like a dead leg kind of thing. He got a whack on the back of the leg before he went down. And he did look uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable the way Shaw was. And Shaw immediately pulled up, which is the sensible thing to do. Even if it's a very, very light tweak, something that he could recover from in a short period of time, to go down and flag it up was the right thing to do. Yesterday wasn't a day to be a hero and try and play through an injury and put yourself out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I think they've probably all been drilled by how, look, exactly that. Don't be a hero. If you feel a tweak, if you're really not sure, let us deal with it. And I think the management of that situation was right for both Shea and Joe Linton. A pound to a penny, if that was a cup final, they both would have played on for a bit. And I think that's but if you look at how they went off, Shea's most definitely was a hamstring, but I'm not convinced Joe Linton's was anything other than a dead leg.
Yeah, I would agree. But good to have him back. And he's a talisman, isn't he, Stu? He's an important player for us. And, you know, hopefully that few minutes on the pitch will maybe lead to him maybe getting a start on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think we've all waxed lyrical many times about Botman, but deservedly so. But I thought it was pretty telling when Shaw went off. Botman wasn't the one that came on, so that tells he's not as close to being fully fit as we'd like him to be, and that's why the shuffle about and put Burnett at the back and put Kraft on. So the Botman idea was if we're winning, we'll give him some minutes near the end, and that's exactly how it panned out, thankfully. But he wasn't ready to play what would have been the best part of 75, 80 minutes when Shaw went down. So I think he might not even start Tuesday. Hopefully he does, because you know how, as Mitch has just referred to there, they're going to have to be extra cautious, especially with those just coming back, because that's when you're most susceptible to getting injured again, is when you try to come back too quick. So will they nurse him in? Because we're playing twice a week again, aren't we, for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for him to play. Whether they start on Tuesday or not, I don't know. I think maybe Luton might be a better bet for him to start a game. But that's just my opinion. But it is, you're right, it's fantastic having him back. We haven't had a better centre-half, have we? So when you're getting players like his ilk back, his quality back, then it has to be a big boost for the whole supporters and the team.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll move on to some questions. We've got a few questions coming in. One which we were going to talk about anyway, which Doug Hall has mentioned, and I think one or two others have mentioned it in the chat as well tonight. But he says, do the lads think there's anything in the Ashworth and Hughes merry-go-round with Man U sniffing around Ashworth? Would Ashworth be tempted with the money, Mitch?
Depends on what kind of money you're talking about. I think that would be tempting for anybody. Somebody comes along and says you can do the same job, but I'm going to double your wages. Don't know how many people would turn around and say bugger off. It also depends on what kind of role they've got a earmarked for, and would you want to go into an environment that's as toxic as Man United seems at the moment, because it really does. That whole the dressing room, the manager, the ownership situation, everything just feels quite toxic. To me, if Ashworth is happy at Newcastle United with the setup he's got and with everything that works and wants to really go places, he stays put. Would the owners have a plan B? Yes, they probably already have got a plan B in mind. Again, it comes back to this dropping the sentimentality and understanding that in football, everybody moves on eventually. Very few people stay for life. I think I'd be disappointed in him if he wanted to take his IBAN and IBAN number and checkbook across the Pennines to Manchester. But if that's the case, good luck to you, and we'll move on, and you can move on in your working life. I just don't know if anybody would really want to go there at the minute. I think, like I say, it's such a seemingly toxic environment. I don't see it as being an upgrade for him, anyway.
It's a one that's doing the rounds, Stu. It's been in a couple of newspapers and seems to have a little bit of legs, but it is coming into the silly season in January with transfers. We might as well talk about backroom staff as well. But he hasn't even been here a year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say there. You just took the words out of my mouth there. It's normally the players that will get linked with transfers, not the directors of football. But it shows that we've got a good one if the so-called biggest team in the world are sniffing around them. But who says they are? I think it could just be some mischief making in the press, and it's anything to unsettle the Newcastle bandwagon. And it's been like that for the last 2 years. We're all aware of it. And I think for Dan Ashworth, I mean, I can't speak for him. I've never spoke to the guy in my life, but if I was him, I'd be thinking, do I want to be seen? He came to Newcastle to lead this project, and I think he wants to go. He should want to go down the path as far as he can and become the leader of what's happened? Or does he want to be known as a mercenary? Because that's the only reason he'd be going to Man United, and that would be for extra money. But we don't know the terms of his contract. We don't know how much he gets paid. We don't know what bonuses he's on, etc. So no doubt he's talented. Otherwise, we wouldn't have recruited him in the first place. So it's good that other people want him. But from everything that you read and see and hear, he looks happy in his role, and I think he's thriving on it. And like all the players, all the backroom staff, all the owners, they all seem to be in this together to one common goal, and that's to achieve as much success as they can for Newcastle United. But if he jumps ship now, I think that might just tarnish his reputation a bit. And if worse comes to worse, and he stays, he might get a little pay rise out of it as well, and a new contract.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens with that story. It's one that's been going around over the course of the weekend. Lee G asks a strange one. He goes, question for the lads. After the new Tyndall song, he says, when Newcastle win a trophy, do we make a statue for Eddie Howe or a statue of Tyndall and Howe together? He says, for me, I'd love to be both of them. What's your thoughts on that, Mitch?
They do very much seem to be a partnership. And Eddie Howe's always very quick to point to the rest of his backroom staff, not just Tyndall, about how things are delivered. I don't think Howe would be upset by that one little bit. Would be an interesting move.
Yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon to have more than one person on a plinth. Stu, has he earned his position next to Eddie on the plinth if they got one?
Well, I'll say when and not if. When we win a trophy, my ideal statue would be the team photo in Wembley and making a real life-size statue of about 40 people, all the backroom staff, all the squad, everyone in that photo, make just this huge, but stick it on the town where a huge, big statue where people could go and visit that like they do the Angel of the North. And that'll be the first one.
Okay. Alan Little, good evening. He says, hi, lads, and all watching. A poor Scousers mank Borefest and thinking that we've got nothing to be afraid of to get in the top four again, or better. Do you think with a fit squad we can challenge again? I do, personally, but it's when we get all these players back that, you know, we can start doing what we were doing at the start of the season, rotating players and finding the best fit for games. But Mitch, yeah, I mean, we've not really looked at this as a disaster. It's a blip in the season, and it's no surprise we're getting one.
We're only a couple of points behind where we were last season. The difference is it's a lot tighter at the top and there's more teams involved. We can go on a decent run of form, sort our away form out, because that's been disappointing. The away form's been the thing that's let us down compared to last season in some respects. Yes, not having the bodies available to change games at crucial times, that is a factor, but it's in our own hands again. It's in our own hands. As Roger said, 10 points off first, the 3 points for a win. That can change very quickly if you go on a win and run. Very, very quickly. And some of these other teams haven't had dips in form yet. In fact, today is probably the worst I've seen Liverpool play in a while. And so are they about to go on a shitty run of form over Christmas and that Klopp can have a little whinge about fixture congestion or something like that? I just don't know. But they looked very poor today for me. It's very much, again, the image of their manager. The yellow card that Núñez got was outrageous, really. He was lucky to stay on the pitch after his reaction as well, especially when you see that Dappo got the red card in injury time for 2 sets of arguments. Well, that's exactly what Núñez had done earlier in the game, sarcastically applauding the referee and the linesman after picking up his yellow, which was the most obvious yellow I've seen in a long time. So, you know, there's a hell of a lot of football to play.
Yeah.
And we're still in the mix. And last season, that's all we kept saying. We just got to keep in the mix and keep it going. This season, I think what we say is we've got to get a little bit of improvement in away form and get people back who can help with change games at crucial times.
Stu, would you agree?
Yeah, well, look at the injury. It has been a crisis that we've had, and we're still hanging on the coattails of those teams who were meant to be playing superb. Again, if we take into consideration, we hugely overachieved last year to finish 4th. And then our 2 star signings of the summer to bolster the squad and help us solidify that position, not even to kick on, to solidify that position, was Tonali and Barnes. It was what, 90+ million spent on them 2. And they've hardly kicked the ball for, have they? So we went back to roughly the same squad as what we've had, with the exception of the find that is Tino Livramento, who has been superb, hasn't he? So, but you take out all those injuries, and I think we've overachieved again. And that's got to be credit to the mental fortitude of all the players and the staff, that they keep going. Even when things have went against them, they just, I feel like I'm quoting Steve Bruce now, but they just seem to brush themselves down and go again, don't they? But they do it with intent and with passion and with pride and more the willingness to achieve. You can see it's there. So it was great to see that photo yesterday as well. But can we get in the top 4 again? Of course we can. And as and when we get the injured players back, I don't think we'll be signing too many players in January anyway, because I think we've documented it many times. It'll take any player a long time to get into the routine of what's expected of them. And you've seen yesterday, for example, Kraft trains with him all the time, hasn't had much game time, but when he came on, he knew exactly what his role was. And that takes time to get done. So there might be 1 or 2 additions, because I think we're creaking offensively. But I think in defence and midfield, we've probably got enough numbers, all barring no more injuries. So I'm positive for going into the second half of the season that we can turn some of those draws into wins and some of the losses into draws. And I think for the last 2 years now at home, it has been a fortress. There's only been 3 teams beat at home in the league in the 2 seasons. So it's getting it on the road, and we couldn't ask for one of the easiest games we'll get all season on paper, is Luton away. Now, that could go 1 or 2 ways with what happened yesterday for them, but they could still be shell-shocked, and we've got to go there with no fear, no compassion, and just rip into them, and we're more than capable of doing that. But that could be a statement for us. And we've missed our star players, but we've still carried on. I'd like to see, like, look at Man City, they've struggled without Haaland and De Bruyne.
Yeah.
Take 2 players out and look what's happened to them. We've had 10, 11, 12, 13 players missing at some stages. So any team will struggle without the star players, but I think because we are a team, and I don't think there's a more united team in the league than what Newcastle United are, that we've credit to them. They're sitting now in 6th in the European places, and they don't have the distraction of Europa League like Liverpool will have, like Aston Villa have, Man City. There's only Tottenham above us that are in the same position. Yeah. So there's no reason why we can't go on, and I think we are better than Tottenham. So why not?
Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickies.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis Liquor Store. Okay, welcome back. David McLeod sent us a question earlier. He said, could you ask Mitch and Stu, is there a food that they loved in the UK, but they miss living abroad? Mitch.
Great sausage rolls for me.
Greg sausage rolls for Stu.
Yeah, I wish if Greg's really wanted to make a killing, they could open some shops out here and they absolutely would sell out. Would fly off the shelves. Because they do like sort of pastry type stuff over here, in sort of different ways. But then now it's the same as a Greg sausage roll, and now it's the same as a steak bake. So, aye, that's pretty much it. I mean, in proper, there's not many good proper fish and chip shops out here.
Right. Oh, well, there you go. There's your answer, Dave. Thanks for your question. Lots of people asking about Lewis Hall. Subutio Paul, good evening, mate. Hope you're well and still doing your Subutio teams. He says, do the lads think that the Lewis Hall stuff is mischief making by the press or leaked deliberately to give the lad a kick up the jacksie? I haven't heard that saying for many a time. I think somebody else had asked that question as well a little bit earlier, but I seem to have lost it. So, yeah. You know, oh yeah, Barry Hogan, there you go. Stu, Mitch, what do you think the problem is with Hall?
It's been on my mind for a couple of weeks. I've got to say, I've not heard anything, but it seemed a bit curious. And I don't think anything happens by accident at Newcastle United at the moment. I really don't think anything has happened. Anything happens by accident at Newcastle United anymore. Mm-hmm. So what the thoughts behind it have been, don't know. You can read all sorts into it. Kick up the arse for Hall, could be. Could be how sending a message to Chelsea saying, yeah, you know, you're resting on your laurels about getting a potential sale here. It's not necessarily going to happen. You just don't know. But it has been a situation that's been puzzling me. But even when he came in, he was very quick to say he didn't see him necessarily as a left back. So whether he's working on developing him into another role, and he doesn't feel he's 100% ready for that role yet, and in the time doesn't want to distract him by chucking him in at left back, don't know. There's a number of things it could be, but also if he is that versatile, surely he could have been used to give a couple of people 5 minutes, 10 minutes off here and there, and he hasn't been. So there's obviously something going on, but you've got to trust the manager in that situation that he's going to handle it the best way that he sees for the club, the player, and the situation we're in.
Yes, Stu, it's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, he did well in that game against Manchester United away, scored a wonderful goal, but he struggled a bit in the Man City game. He got an early booking, if I remember rightly, which was a little bit unfair. And Tino Livramento in that game took his chance and hasn't looked back. But yeah, there is a couple of question marks. Eddie was a bit sketchy about it in the press conference at the weekend as well.
We don't know what's happening behind the scenes as well. Maybe he hasn't settled in, because I know he's a Newcastle supporter. His dad certainly is.
Yeah.
But he is a young lad from the south, and people take to moving differently to us. Some people embrace it. Some people still want the home comfort. Strangely, we were talking about what food we're missing. So we've got it. I think, did Willock not go through something similar as well, where he was getting lonely? And I think he's with the right people to manage him. But if we're just talking in football terms, there might not have been a defined role for him. Is he seen as a centre midfielder or a left midfielder or a left back? What is his role? And if he didn't want to play him, I don't buy into this appearances thing, because he's thrown him on for a couple of minutes yesterday. He threw him on for a couple of minutes against Tottenham. You wouldn't do that if it was based on the number of appearances. You'd just, for the sake of those few minutes, you keep them. So it might just be a case of getting more out of him by sometimes treating them and keep them keen and saying, look, have a taste of what you can have. Here's some of it. You need to step up to the plate now. Maybe he's not doing in training what's expected, but everything that we debate here is just mere speculation, and I don't want to do the lad a disservice. For all we know, he could be carrying an injury. He could really kick on, in the second half of the season and become fantastic for us. And just to reiterate, trust the process. Eddie Howe and the coaching staff know what they're doing with him, and if they think he's ready to play 90 minutes the way they want that role to be played, whichever role he's chosen to do, then he'll play. But until then, he's going to have to sit and watch others do it. And it could be he's watching thinking, look, we've got all these injuries, why aren't I getting on? Then the question has to be asked to himself. And I'm sure Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall and the rest of them will be giving us as much encouragement as possible. But sometimes not everyone fits. And it could be he could be the odd one out in that group. Maybe he just doesn't fit into it. So we're not going to play people for the sake of playing people. We need to play the ones that are going to give us the best chance of winning. So if it's still like this at the end of the season and he's had very limited minutes, then I can't see us splashing out the cash unless it's already done. And if it is already done, then he's going to play a bigger role in our future anyway. So if he's not ready here and now, then that's exactly how we'll have to take it. Just trust what's happening and leave the speculation to the press.
Trust the process. That's what we say on here. Martin Gallant says, I think we need to tie Tino and Miley to long-term deals, which, I mean, that'll be something I would imagine the club will look at because, they're both playing very, very well at the moment. Maybe after the Tonali saga, deeper checks are being made on Hall in case of a major gem or jelly baby addiction, says Sam. It's a possibility. He's on commission, that job. Where's the 2.5 million star signing he was doing at Brighton, says Ian. There's a bit of animosity towards Dan Ashworth, but, from Ian, especially in the chat. But ultimately for me, it's press speculation. And like we always say, when a player's linked with a club, we'll wait till he's standing on the pitch wearing the shirt with a scarf on his hand. And similarly with Dan Ashworth, we'll wait till there's an official announcement from the club, I think, before we continue on that. It's in the press. We've spoken about it. Nobody knows what's going on apart from, people at the club. Moving on to
the direction that we're going now. Yeah. And the way United are, it would be his loss anyway. And I really can't see him wanting to leave what we're on the verge of achieving. It would be professional suicide to do something like that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it was a couple of years into the job, but we're not even a year into the job. I just couldn't see him doing it unless there'd been a major about turn behind the scenes. So, who knows? Tom takes us into a different direction on a bus, Mitch. He says, Mitch and Stu, what's your thoughts on the club putting free coaches on for the local derby. Steve Hastie'd been doing a bit digging today, and I think he came up with a figure. Was it 70 or 75 buses?
Yeah. And they're double deckers.
Double deckers.
They're not coaches, they're normal buses.
Right.
Which I've been on a convoy like that to Sunderland. And exactly the same thing. When you got your ticket, you got your bus ticket, and you got a ticket for the ground when you got on the bus.
Yeah.
And it took forever because of the complicated route they used to keep off main roads and keep away from certain roads. In a police convoy with police at the front, police at the back, helicopters overhead. Everybody'd been in places like the Black Garter from 7:30 in the morning. And my best advice for anybody on the coaches is take something bigger than a crisp packet if you think you need to pee while you're on your way there. It's complex. Understand bubble games like that. It gives with the allocation that we're clamoured for, but the price of the allocation is a very complicated transport system and a convoy that will be difficult to manage. I'm presuming they'll do ID checks on the buses. I don't know. I really don't know what the plan for this would be. So it will frustrate some. Yes, they did get bricked as well. Not as bad as the bricking we got in Middlesbrough, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, it was. I don't know how you can stop that happening altogether.
Yeah, because
you put a slow-moving, very big target on a route, and it's gonna happen. You know, it's really gonna happen. I can't see the police being able to stop it altogether. However, if this is the only way that we can get an appropriate cup allocation, because I know they're kicking off about this, but by the rules of the competition, you're allowed a bigger percentage in the FA Cup, and moving season ticket holders is nothing new for cup games. We've had to do it for season ticket holders in the past too. So there's no... They're kicking off because it's us.
Yeah,
they're kicking off because it's us, and we've spoiled that lovely display that they've raised apparently £17,500 for, which I'm sure a couple of people are going to enjoy a bit of a holiday with that. And they're now arguing internally that the fact that it sounds like all they want to do is talk about us, their biggest game in years, and they want to put a display on, and it's all about us.
Yeah,
and so all of these things. Yeah, I saw that this afternoon, and I did have a little chortle to myself. Come and wear red gloves to say there's no blood on your hands. Well, no, that would be saying there is blood on your hands. Somebody who's worked in operating theatres, I can tell you, when you get blood on your gloves, it's on your hands. So yeah, it's a tough call, but the club and the police and, to be fair, Sunderland too will have worked on how this was going to work. I would prepare people to say it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
To be patient. Don't let yourselves get wound up. Take an empty Lucozade bottle, and you'll all be fine.
Yeah, Stu. I mean, the tickets, 6,000 tickets. I had a chat with Darren Curry on social media yesterday. He was just filling us in on his, his conversations with the club about the tickets. I've got to take my hat off to the fans representatives from NUSC, NUST, and others who were in negotiations. They've got us a good allocation. It might not be the way we would want to travel to the game, but bubble operations aren't new. Various clubs, Darren was saying, have used bubble operations in the past. He's the same as me and you lads, would probably, you'd prefer to go on the train or under your own steam and, have the full derby atmosphere. But it is what it is. We've got to accept it. What's your thoughts on the whole Sunderland bus mission?
Well, initially, you've got to give credit where credit's due. Like you say, the supporters groups that have helped push the club and put across the fans' thoughts how important the game is. And to me, it was imperative that the club understood, and I'm sure they did. But if it's coming from all sides, how much it means to the supporters to get a good allocation. And I think, Mitch, if nobody were talking about getting the bus and getting tickets on the bus, and ages, didn't it? But if I remember right, that was standing then.
Yes.
So you could just sit and stand anywhere. You know, now you haven't allocated seats that have been given to you because of your loyalty point and everything else. You're going to have to get the ground about 6:30 or something, aren't you, for the 12:30 kickoff?
It's going to be super complicated.
Over complicated. That's the thing. But I'm concerned about as Mitch just mentioned, the very slow moving target that will be 70, 80 buses and double deckers as well. So you've even got extra things to extra space to throw out as well, extra target space. But it happens. We're from an era where it happened on a regular basis, and it's not a good thing. I'm not trying to glorify it, but it's likely to happen. And if it does, it makes them look bad, not us. You know, we're the ones going down there as the Premier League team, and we're the ones that will come back in the fourth round of the cup. They'll only make a fool of themselves, dreaming up stupid things like red gloves and getting stands. What they should be doing is getting focused and trying to support their own team. But for those who have visited the village of the Dam, they are obsessed, consumed with all things Newcastle United. And that's where they'll never, ever be able to get better than what they are, because that's what they are. It's always like, let's look what they're doing. Let's look what their mags are doing. But 6,000, it could have been technically 7,500 or just short of 7,500. But 6,000 Newcastle fans will make a massive noise. And if anyone doesn't have a Lucozade bottle and you're bursting for a pee on the way back, then there'll be plenty of crisp packets floating around the stadium as there normally is. So just grab one of those and help yourself. Hopefully they've got a family pack or a multi-pack or something you can use. Because, do you know what? I know that we have been moved seats before for big cup games, for allocations, etc. But I can't understand. I'm not saying I offer sympathy to them, but I can't understand people who have been sat in that seat for X amount of years, etc., and then being told they have to move. And then for us as well. And so you can understand their anger. And you start looking back, if you say, right, Steve, where you're sitting, right, that's now going to be for away fans. You've got to go and sit somewhere else. Of course, you'd be a bit disgruntled. Still happy that you're in the ground, but you can. Yeah, I get what they're saying, but once they start filling their own ground, and they shouldn't be, but which they're not doing. And for how many games a season is that top tier not even open? So they can't really say that they'll fill the ground 5 or 6 times or whatever else tripe they're coming out with. It's because it's us that come to see the big boys, and I love it. I can't wait for the game. I really can't wait for the game, because we'll twonk them, and we'll have as many Geordies on the pitch as we possibly can. Get them, everyone that's fit, get them on. And then have someone like Wilson up front and Joe Linton in midfield and just take them apart, because we will. So it's 6,000 lucky people will be there. Hopefully everyone travels together and comes home with safety together. The question I did want to ask, which I don't know the answer to, is the people in the corporates managed to get their tickets a week or so earlier. Already, they know that they're going. Do they have to travel on this convoy as well? Or are they better than the normal fans, so they don't have to be treated like cattle? That's a question I really don't know the answer to, but I'd like to know the answer.
Nobody seems to have asked around a few people, and nobody seems to have the answer to that. We've been allocated black
the same convoy as everyone else, and that's it. And that should go for the others as well. If we want to be petty about this, everyone should go together. But it'd be good for everyone to feel and sense the passion. Some might be disgusted about how normal fans behave, but we're going down there together, and you need everyone together. So sorry for repeating the word together, but that's when you go to games like that, you have to be. You can't have people diving off everywhere. So it makes sense, the bubble bus. It's not good that people get treated like children or untrusted, and it's going to inconvenience a lot of people, especially those who come from south of the Tyne. They're going to have to put extra time on the journey to come up to Newcastle, to then go back to Sunderland, to come back to Newcastle, to go back to wherever they come from. Yeah. But it's part and parcel of of what the game's about, and hopefully the extra hours will pale into significance after a resounding victory.
Chris Cooper asked a question about Miggy, saying, "I can't fault the lad's work rate, but why can't he speak English yet?" I'm not sure. I've got to be honest. I've not heard many interviews with him, so I wasn't aware that his English wasn't as good. Is that the case? Have you guys heard him speak much? Is he still learning the language? I'm not sure. He's been here a few years now.
I haven't. It has, but at the same time, each to their own. I would find it disappointing if he hadn't picked enough up to be conversational at least.
Yeah.
But maybe he isn't confident enough to do interviews.
David says apparently he can, but he's too shy to use it.
There you go.
That would make sense. That would make sense. Are you agreeing? Yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody's a gobshite like me. Who will have a go in any language.
I spoke a few times. You see on some of the, he can't speak English, but I wouldn't say he's be fluent in it. Yeah. And you know what happens with when people get interviewed to try and throw a curveball in, and then he might say something that's not the right answer, and he gets picked up. So he's better off with I speak no English, and that's the least of my worries with Miguel Almirón, to be honest. So
yeah, I'm pleased he scored yesterday, because he was one of those who was getting a bit of stick on social media, of course, prior to the game. You know, I mean, you guys know I used to be quite prevalent on social media, but I do less and less on there now. I've stopped doing it really, because I don't have the time in the day to be responding to people who, you know, completely just want to tear down your opinion. And I've seen when I'm on there now, I still see it happening to other people, and it's just you know, it's sad, because it means that some players are getting, you know, a bit of stick on there, and I think unfairly. You know what I mean? I mean, we've just won 7 home games in a row. It's the first time we've ever done that. Yes, we're away form's poor. Yes, there's something to work on. Yes, we've gone out of the Champions League and Europe, you know, but we've got a big game tomorrow night, Tuesday night, sorry. You know, we've got a quarter-final of the Carabao Cup, which is winnable with whichever team we put out, as long as we stick to our principles and, you know, put out a team that's committed to go and get the win away from home. You know, we could be in the semi-finals by Wednesday morning. So, you know, lots to play for. Let's get back to the questions. CC, this was one sent earlier. Question for the lads. Could Miley benefit from playing with Longstaff, a fellow Geordie, an Englishman, even more than with the 2 Brazilians? He might feel more comfortable communicating and less overawed and pressured. Interesting question. I mean, it would be nice if Eddie Howe had options to pick and choose. At the moment, it's who's available to play, Mitch, isn't it? As to who he ends up playing with.
To me, I think he benefited when he came on.
Yeah.
From the fact that Longstaff and Bruno and him seem to have more defined roles. I think that they had a better idea what they were doing. And I think Bruno came into his own when he suddenly realised, right, this midfield's on me. This is all about me. And, you know, he became the engine room, and then he let Longstaff and Miley work around him.
Yeah.
And I think that benefited everybody. So, yes, I think I think, you know, it's one of these things, playing with Longstaff. Of course, somebody who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, and understands what it means to break through into the first team as a Geordie and shared experience and all of that. But could you really say you're not going to improve your game playing in the midfield with 2 Brazilians? I think you bloody well are.
Yeah, I mean, it's options, isn't it, that we struggle with at the minute with this injury crisis, Stu. But I get where CC's coming from.
Yeah, with someone like Miley, though, I think he's just living the dream, isn't he? I don't think he cares who he's playing for as long as he's playing. And I think the more he plays, the more confident he's going to get. And I'm excited because I don't think we've seen the best of him by a long stretch. I think he's got so much more potential. I think his ceiling's huge, and he'll just get better. He come on that game yesterday, and as a 17-year-old, you start thinking, well, you know, he's gonna. But he comes straight into it, didn't he? As if he had started the game. So again, that goes back to something I said earlier. They all know the roles. They all know what's expected of them in that role. And I think the fact that they moved Longstaff to the left side of Bruno and kept Miley where he'd be more comfortable was a little nod to him as well. They didn't want to just stick him on and put him in a position he's not used to playing. And Longstaff being the person he is, he was still very committed and did admirably well playing out of position. So Miley, they will manage his minutes for sure. They will when more and more people come back. But I've got no qualms in playing him, and he might just want to keep. Well, obviously every player should want to play all the time, but he seems to have a great grasp of what's expected, and I think he trusts the manager as well. So if he says you're not playing, it's not because you're not playing well. It's because it's for the betterment of you as an individual. And he's got many years ahead to play for Newcastle. He really could be something special, and it's going to be great watching him develop.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he had a smile as wide as the Tyne when he banged that goal in as well the weekend, and rightly so. His parents must have been so proud to be there, and he's just developed. He really has. Big shout out to Nigel Franklin, who's in the chat. He's a Villa fan. Always welcome other clubs fans into the chat, and nice to see him having an opinion. Just nice to be at the right end of the table. He says Villa and Newcastle belong there. He's delighted that the top six are no more and that it's broadened. So yeah, I would agree. Gary, good evening. He says the interviews were good, both with Byrne and with Bruno. What an absolute baller that young lad is. It's obvious the senior pros are all looking after him. Yeah, the celebrations, especially with Bruno.
You can see that on the pitch. Even when he set that goal up for Isaac, they were all keen to actually make sure Miley got some of the praise. And so, that's the squad saying, hey, we really rate this kid and you need to appreciate what he's able to do.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, tomorrow's the Fans Forum, which means we've got the chance to look ahead first to the Cup game, lads. Chelsea on Tuesday night, and it is the Carabao Cup quarterfinals, and very excited about this, guys. The Carabao Cup is still something I think we could push for. I'm sure Eddie and the lads are looking at this as a potential opportunity to revisit Wembley and put right the wrong of last season. What's your thoughts on this one, Mitch?
Well, the Carabao Cup draws certainly haven't been kind, have they?
No.
And if we progress through this and eventually get the final, if we were to win the bloody competition, nobody can accuse you of having an easy path. Chelsea, it could really depend on which Chelsea turn up and how they're set up and which way they play. They don't seem to have a established way of play. Pochettino certainly doesn't seem to know what his best 11 or his best formation is. If the Chelsea that we thumped at St James's Park turn up, it doesn't matter which team we put out, we'll give them a damn good game. Really don't know what to make of it. It's a genuine sort of wild card, if you ask me. But we'll go with the right spirit. Personally, I'd go as strong as we can. Yeah. And go for it. It's a situation we've got now to lose. And we've proved in this competition when we've gone into games thinking we've got now to lose and playing the way we have, we've not Man City out, we're not Man United out. Let's add Chelsea to the list.
Okay, Stu, thoughts on this one? I mean, I'd love to, I've made it quite clear over the last few weeks, this was my main focus, this game, and I'd love to see us progress and get into a semi-final and hopefully have a little bit of rub of the green on that occasion and maybe draw, the winner of Port Vale Middlesbrough.
That would be fantastic, but if you look at this to me now is our best chance because it's our next chance of silverware, but realistically, we're not going to win the league in the next year or two. We're not going to win the Champions League in the next year or two. So it has to be one of the domestic cups. And because the so-called bigger teams rest players, then this should be our best chance to do it. But if you call Chelsea a so-called bigger team, they're not bigger than us now, are they? But they won't be resting. They'll be full strength because this cup really means something to them now. But if you look at their last 10 years, who's won it? I think Man City won it, but 6 years in a row. So like Man United have won it, Liverpool have won it. So it's it does have its relevance to get the silverware as springboard. But I would bet you I think that we'll go there full strength, and I think we'll beat them 2-0. It doesn't matter who plays for us, as we've coined too many times this evening. Everyone will know their role, and because we've played Man City, Man United, Chelsea, I think we'll get a rejuvenated Everton in the semi-finals over 2 legs. And that's a draw that some people wouldn't want at the moment. And then we'll get Liverpool in the final. And it'll be just so Newcastle United for us to win it like that and do it that way. Because we've had easier routes to get to finals and not taking advantage of it. So if we do it that way, then we deserve to win it. And I'm sure we will. Starting on Tuesday night, 2-0 to Newcastle.
2-0. Okay, I'm gonna go for a 2-1 win to Newcastle. Rub of the green, says David. That'll be Liverpool then. Mitch, you got the dice?
Penalties.
Oh God, I don't think I could stomach that. But yeah, as long as we go through, lads, that's the main thing. Okay, this week fans forum 6 o'clock on Monday. Tuesday. Obviously, with the game on, I will revisit what we're going to do on Tuesday night. Wednesday should be Geordie's here. Geordie's there. I think we're all right for that. Thursday will be Super Matt and Gibbo, and that will be a 6 o'clock kickoff. And then the Amigos will be on Friday, but it'll be 4 o'clock this week. So it'll be 4 o'clock till 5:30. So an hour and a half. It will be live. Stu's going to join us as well. It'll be the last Amigos before Christmas. And obviously no professionals next weekend because it'll be Christmas Day next weekend. Christmas Eve. So yeah, we'll not be doing the professionals on Christmas Eve. So that's why Stu's going to join us on the Amigos on Friday. So thanks for tonight, lads. As always, a pleasure. And let's hope your predictions come true. I'll see everybody on the fans forum tomorrow night. Take care, lads.
Cheers, everyone.
Have a great night.